Hey everyone, welcome to Start Your Dungeons. I'm Adam,
I'm Bryce.
and today we're talking about the new Warhammer Underworlds box.
The Deathgorge,
Ooh.
set in the icy plains of Gur.
So, if you've seen our earlier episode on Underworlds, we really like the game, and the fact that there's a new set that's out, we really want to talk about it.
And I want to speak about that first because these are different. So the one we reviewed, the 2023 starter set, is a evergreen starter set at the moment. It works always. You can buy into it. These are called core boxes. So the way these work are they are more expensive. They're $85 up to $100 basically for these sets, and they come with the same thing as the other one: 2 warbands, boards, tokens, all that stuff. But these also come with 2 Universal Rivals decks in the box set. So you're getting and the updated rule book. So this is basically like, for anyone who's played like a TCG, it's almost like a new setting or a new core set released for a trading card game that has basically the updated rules and things. And then for about 4 or 6 months after this, they'll release 2 war bands for this and maybe some universals, and then do another one of these. So these come out every like 6 months. But the starter set is evergreen. You can use that at any time. But I just wanted to make that distinction because we haven't talked about them, and they are a little bit different than like a traditional like starter set kind of thing.
So, what comes in the box?
A lot. So you do get a lot of things in this box set. You get Serenized Razors, which are a new Ideneth Deepkin one. Squidly Squid is the best. The Squid model is fantastic. I mean, that's really, I think, what helped sell this box. And then the other one is the Slaaneshi Demon Warband, which is the first we've ever had, the Thricefold Discord, which are some gorgeous, actually, models. I am not a fan of, like, the Slaanesh vibe usually, but these snake kind of like vibe to them I really like. You get 2 double-sided boards like I've placed here, set in the Deathgorge, and for anyone who's a competitive player, they're some of the best I think they've ever come out with.
Yeah, they look beautiful.
They're very beautiful to look at. They've got some really good placements, some new things. There's some new rules that got added into the game, so you do get a rule book that gets added in. You get a Rivals deck for both Serenized Razors and also for Thricefold Discord, but like I said, you also get 2 universal ones that are included. The Force of Frost deck, which is a ice-themed wizard deck. And the other one, which is Breakneck Speed, which is all about putting momentum counters on your guys and then moving super fast. But afterwards, it's like you slip on the ice because your opponent gets to push you a certain amount of squares.
Okay.
And then you get all the tokens you would need for everything to play the game and dice. So
That's a lot.
yeah.
So, is everything nice quality?
I think so. I think Warhammer Underworlds always does a really good job with the tokens are pretty much the same every single time, except for
they're tough. They're not like flimsy.
And you do get new themed objectives, and that does matter in this one. There were some changes to the rules where now you've got double-sided cover and they're basically like ice token, but they're called blocked hexes, which block line of sight, and we've not had that before in the game.
Right.
So that is a huge new thing that they've added. The miniatures are always super nice. I mean, I think Underworld still knocks it out of the park in most cases with the models. They're usually, even though I'm not a huge fan of the Serenized Razors as much, because they look very similar-esque to the Ideneth models they're based on.
They do, yeah.
They're still really high quality and like just enough little depth to where you could throw them in as like leaders to some of your things. I think the Squid model is fantastic. If you played Underworlds before, all of the Ideneth had the fish, they had the crab, now they got a squid, so like they get all the cool little animals. And I didn't love the Thricefold Discord as much when I first got them, but I've really started to dig them, and I'm excited to eventually paint them up.
Yeah.
They look pretty cool.
To me, they look like they deserve some airbrushing.
I'm debating how I'm going to do it. I want to dry. So they're mostly like purplish pink on their artwork, but I think I'm going to do like a lime green, like scaly kind of look to them. And then for these guys, I'm going to do them all based on different octopus-themed Pokemon. So each one is going to be based on a fish or Pokemon, and I'm going to use that color palette to paint them.
So were these easy to assemble? Because I see these 2 especially I keep looking at, as possibly fiddly.
I will say the squid is fiddly.
Okay.
The squid has a beak actually, which you can't really see, but if you look underneath, he actually has a beak under there.
Okay.
Like it's pretty impressive. You'll never see it normally, but it's cool they did that. If you don't put it the right way, the model won't go together.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and they do kind of show you can kind of figure it out a little bit. But it is a little bit tough. I like these Ideneth better than the old Ideneth. The old Ideneth had so many spiky parts that they hurt to put together almost. The thrice fold weren't bad, but they weren't great.
Okay.
I will say, as much as I love Underworlds for their instinctive design and cool ideas that they have, those were a little bit fiddly and concerned me. I was worried about some breakage on them, and I would just say just be careful. Like I'm fat fingered, so I always worry a little bit about some of these with the meticulous pieces, but I think they've gotten better over the years in making sure even the fiddly pieces aren't as bad to put together.
Yeah.
But they went together pretty. Once I got them all cut out and kind of scraped up, not a lot of bad mold lines on this set either. In fact, I was surprised how little cleanup I actually needed, especially
Okay.
on her. Sarah and I was pretty surprised.
So how much do you need to assemble to get playing? Is it just these guys?
Yeah, just
Okay.
assemble these guys, punch out your tokens, put out your boards, open your decks, and you're good to go.
Required tools?
I would say make sure you have good clips. I mean, that's always nice. You might want a little bit of a file or X-Acto knife. Again, they weren't that bad. Like I was genuinely shocked how little flash I had to remove in some areas and like little bits of mold line. Not as much. And I think they've just gotten better about when they do mold lines, they're in areas that are covered in most cases or clipped off. So yeah, I mean, pretty easy to assemble. They are push fit again. Always Underworld's models push fit. As always, highly recommend snip a little bit off the end and then it's assemble them. Otherwise, sometimes they get a little bit stuck or air gets in
Yeah.
there and they don't fully close.
You'll leave little gaps.
Yeah, and you'll
you
have a
have to
little
fill
bit
them.
of gap. These aren't so bad as like the Stormcast are for gaps.
Gosh.
But yeah.
Yeah, don't get me started. Ugh. Okay. Are there any cheat sheets in the box?
So what they've started doing on the back of the rulebook, and I greatly appreciate this, is the back of the rulebook shows you the steps of a turn and the steps of a round, which is huge because there are so many steps in this game where it's like your activation step, then your inspire, your reaction, your surge step, now your power step, and your reaction, and your surge, and your like you get so many steps, and they've laid that out on the back, which I really appreciate. There is still not a whole lot in terms of like a cheat sheet besides that, but again, I think you don't need a whole lot for this game
Because everything's on the cards.
Right.
This game is run by cards. So
yeah.
So speaking of cards, are they easy to follow?
Yeah, I think that again they're getting better about wording. There is some cards that are a little finicky on how they're worded, but not as much. I think they've gotten better with wording. I think the problem is that as they've gotten more and more developed in this game, adding new ideas can be hard. But I think the new ideas are a lot better. So like their inspire mechanization is they inspire after their third activation in round 1, their second activation in round 2, and their first activation round 3. So they flip back and forth like the tide coming in and out, which is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
For those who played Soul Raid, the other one, they only inspired in round 2, and then in round 3 they uninspired. So it was a cool idea. Their mechanic is really cool. Their idea is every one of them is paired, and basically they're all these Slaneshi demons who hate each other. And if you fail a roll with no successes in it, you inspire somebody else. So, like the leader, he has a range 2, 1 dice with a hammer, 3 damage attack. And if he misses, he inspires her. So it kind of incentivizes you to figure out how you want to do it. And when they die, the other person inspires. So it's a really cool chaining almost effect of how you inspire people.
And it definitely makes them the warband that you would want to take risks with because there's a higher payoff for taking a risk.
Because if he misses, cool, you inspired somebody. If he hits, you dealt 3 damage. So like it's a really cool mechanic. I like too that each of them has a loci on them, which is like the Slaneshi demon like thing. and their locais give them certain bonuses. Like his is if you roll no success in defense, -1 damage on him, and his is he always counts as having a single support because he has so many arms. So that's like a really cool kind of aspect that they all act as solo units by themselves, but their friends failing, they almost like cackle and laugh at, and they like inspire because of it.
So how easy is it to get into this game?
So again, I think this one does not have the play-by-play book. So if you don't understand how to play Underworlds, you might want a little bit of help. I always recommend YouTube is a really great resource. If you have the starter set, that starter set is really good about that one. I showed someone that the other day. I think it is still a lot to learn because Underworld is not just a game of just playing with models. It's models and cards and all this extra stuff.
Deck building.
Yeah, and so it's a lot. But I do like this box set a lot. I actually think this is one of the best box sets they've released with the introduction of like the Nemesis format in terms of good boards, good warbands, good Nemesis decks. So I think this one is really good overall for a set.
Can you easily find information you need?
The rulebook is better. Okay. I think the rulebook did a better job this time. And there are little subtle updates in there for those of you who play Underworld. So like there is the plunder rule was changed. The delve rule was changed. So there's little bitty rules that were changed and added in that you might want to just make sure you read carefully now to kind of understand. But if you're new to playing to Underworlds, it's all updated and ready to go. So I do think you'll pretty much get it after a few games. Like I don't see this, like these warbands are not terribly complex actually, which I like. The difference between them is this one is more aggro and more about using some magic every now and then. Their whole thing is they have these temptation cards where basically I give you 2 bad choices and you have to pick one of them. And I really like the way it works. And they have these upgrades too where they can give you these like really cool items. There's like an armor that makes you have like better defenses, but your movement drops by 2 up to 0. So like you could have no movement, but you'd be super tough to hit. Or one of them is like your defenses are better, but you can only see within 2 hexes. You can't see farther than that. So like there's some really cool little like tricky things with them that I think make them really interesting.
Yeah.
But not terribly complicated.
Does it require a lot of memorizing keywords?
No, I don't think so. I think this one does have, again, she has an ability that basically it's a line of sight ability that it takes you an action, but you ping somebody for 1 damage and you stagger them. There's a really cool ability, but like that is like keywords you're gonna learn, like stagger. There's not so much. Yeah, I really can't think of where these ones say like this fighter's on guard. It's more like this fighter counts dodges in their defenses now. Things like that. The squid is funky. The squid actually has an ink ability where if you hit it, it can teleport within 1 hex of the board as long as it's away from an enemy. So it can kind of like projectile and can run away. So there's some cool little tricks, but there's not like keywords to memorize it.
What about symbol based?
I mean, the dice are all symbol based, so that's pretty much it. Like, everything's symbol based on the dice. Everything's symbol based on your card. But again, reading a card is not hard. I think once you learn where every stat is, you kind of know how to play the game because every stat is the same across every card. Everyone has a move, a dodge, or a defense, and a health, and then your basic attacks and stuff. So
let's talk about the time it takes to play the game, because Underworlds isn't like a lot of miniatures games where it has set missions and you have these campaigns or whatever. So these will you put out your board, your opponent puts out a board, and then you start playing this skirmish. How long does it take to do that?
I think your first time you play, 45 minutes to an hour, but I regularly play games in like 20 to 30 minutes max. I think that's one of the great things about Underworld. It's also easy to re-rack. If you're playing an army game, you have to, all right, everyone take all your guys, move them back, put them all within 12, line them up. It's just like, all right, bam, 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 shuffle your deck, let's go. Like, you know what I mean?
The board is hex-based, and it has specific markings where you put your warband. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quick.
And I will say this, someone brought this up as a comment in our other video, and I actually got to play one of them. White Dwarf did release special missions that are not like tournament based missions, but
Yeah.
they're fun little ones. There's a solo one where you can fight the one of the like I forget what it's called, the Fulmeroid Crusher
Yep.
model. Love that
I
model.
love that
That
model.
model's gorgeous.
Oh man.
Then one I ran at our local store when we did our charity event.
With the
I
Gargant.
ran it with the Gargant, which by the way, that Gargant slaps. It killed
Yeah.
everybody. But it's a really cool little fun ones like that. But in terms of what comes in this box set, those are the only way to play. And then
Right.
I will say, because I did forget to mention last time, there is something called Arena Mortis, which they don't make anymore, I don't think. And that is like a bring a leader kind of combo-y, like you're in an arena fighting against each other thing.
I
I've not
remember
actually,
seeing it.
yeah, I've not actually played it,
Yeah.
but I know it has specialty rules. But like Adam said, the game is fighting one-on-one against somebody, pretty much. You can multiplayer, but I don't think that's a good way to play this.
Is this a complete game?
Yep, 100%. So that is one nice thing about core boxes. And you know, Rob, who's on our channel, always talks about how excited he is that he bought the Narwood box and he could play that for a year probably and never get tired of it.
Yeah.
And that's nice is, you know, you've got 2 warbands so you can play Rivals. You have 2 Nemesis decks so you can play Nemesis. And if you're really feeling frisky, you could play technically Championship because the 2 Universal Rivals decks are both so freaking good that like you could probably build a decent champs deck just using those. Like
Wow.
that's how good they are. Very good actually. And I think that's when I talk about like how good this set is, the decks that came in here really changed a lot of the meta because if anyone follows along, you know, Gnarlwood has been out now for maybe about a year and a half or two, and well, maybe like a year and a half at this point, and it came with Nemesis decks to kind of bring it. These feel like evolutions of some of those original decks, and I kind of really like that they're doing that because it's giving us more options. Especially some things like the Force of Frostic is really good for wizards. You can also create a wizard. There's an upgrade in there that makes someone have a frost staff that makes them a level 2 wizard, which is really cool. And it's also very aggro heavy, but then breakneck speed is really fun and I think really good for a lot of the warbands before that were playing aggro, but struggled a bit because Tooth and Claw only had range 1 stuff. That deck does range 1 and 2, so it actually really opens up your options. Like I have a fun deck I'm going to play for anyone who knows Scabix, or not Scabix, Claw Pack that came out in Nethermaze. It's called Rats on Ice, and it's literally just the rats going like 800 miles per hour into your zone and trying to kill you. It's going to be hilarious. It's going to be fun. Like,
what would you need to expand this game?
as with anything, you know, Underworlds, if you want to buy more Universal Rivals decks, there will be more probably coming out for this set. I don't imagine them not doing them. We've had pretty much a core set and then 2 warbands and 2 Universal Rivals decks released almost every time. So I'm sure those will come out. The always new warbands. What's nice is if you love a warband in a core set, you just keep buying core sets, and if you want more decks, or buy the decks on eBay, or you just buy the Universal Rivals decks and call it a day kind of thing.
Pretty easy to just buy one little thing and then maybe just upgrade a little bit.
So I've started to realize that like I buy everything pretty much because I love the game. I play it competitively and like I need kind of everything in some regards even to play Nemesis. But like, yeah, it's nice that like if I wanted to, I didn't have to. Like I love Scabix, which is the one that came out before this, which was the Plague Rats. I love them. And like they actually work with so many decks. And I think that's what's really nice is like if you get a warband you really like and it's very versatile, you don't have to buy a whole lot more. But if you want to, like, there's a lot of options, you know.
I just have one.
Yeah.
I have one warband.
Yeah. But like if you want to expand, there's so many different ways to do it. And I think that's what makes Underworld so great is that you don't have to spend all that money. You can really keep it cheap. And it is really like I think the cheapest game that really Games Workshop puts out in terms of like a miniature game-esque game. Because you don't need a bunch of terrain, you don't need like a bunch of other stuff. This is kind of the easy, cheap, fun one to get into. And if you love like deck building, it's a good one for that.
Yep. So who is this for? Does this have value for both new and seasoned players?
Absolutely. If you're a seasoned player, pick this up. I can't. The boards are amazing. The decks are amazing. Like this changed our meta. Like so. we are recording this right at the end of November. If for anyone who follows, the weekend of November, I think it was 17th, was the World Championships. And the World Championship deck won with a Rivals deck out of this.
Wow.
So he played Domatan, which was the Weird Hollow Stormcast like magician guys, with Force of Frost deck. And I think he dropped 2 games out of the 8 rounds they played.
Wow.
So these decks will change things up. And I think if you're a new player, this is a really good set to get started with if you're looking to play Nemesis and other things, because like I said, the 2 Universal Rivals decks are amazing. These boards are some of the best we've had, and they won't rotate out for a long time, so they're really good. And if you like warbands with a little bit of trickiness to them, these 2 are really good. So we've been talking, me and my buddy Zach, about this one specifically because they're kind of a weird puzzle to unlock. They can flex really well. They can do aggro. They can do some hold objective, but they're almost hard to build for because they're so flexible, and it makes it real interesting. Whereas they can kind of be aggro heavy, magic heavy, and they kind of build their deck almost themselves, where this one takes a lot longer to kind of get a feeling for it. And
there's some finesse.
There is some finesse to that warband. And I think if you're a new player, that's nice because you have a pretty easy almost warband where you can kind of just go in and do stuff, but you have some tricks, and then something that lets you have a little bit of fun with positioning and flexibility and stuff like that.
And our last question, would you keep playing based on this box? If you were coming on to the, into the game and just had this box, would this be the thing that kept you going? I
think so. I think better than I will say, I was a huge fan of the Gnarlwood box, which kickstarted a lot of the Nemesis one. That had the Gnarl Spirit Pack and the Sons of Elmorn. Love those 2 warbands. I think the decks in those were great. I wasn't a huge Weird Hollow guy. I just wasn't. I liked the decks in there. I think Toxic Terror is really cool and Seismic Shock. But they weren't for me as much. This core set, I first saw it, and you remember I sent it to you and said, I think the models look stupid. I'm not interested in this. The more I read these cards, the more I was like, this is a really good jumping on point and a really good, get you a vast majority of stuff. So, I think, this, I already play it. I play this game competitively. I love this game. But I think if you started with this one, you would want to keep going because the warbands in this are really good and the decks are really good. So you have a lot of ability to kind of, grow from this set. Whereas maybe Weird Hollow, I felt was such a good confined piece that maybe it was hard to expand out of, because the 2 warbands in there were amazing. The other warband in there, Ephelum, was second place at Worlds. Multiple people played it. You know what I mean? It's those were really good, and I think that this one feels like it breathes you want to play more and get more, whereas maybe Weird Hollow was a little too overtuned to where it was well, I don't need more because these are the 2 best warbands in the game, so what's the point?
Well, if you have played this set or, want to have some questions answered about this set, if you're an Underworlds player and want to talk to Bryce about this,
I'm always up for talking Underworlds.
Just, post a comment down below, and we'll see you in the next video.
Y'all take care.
Bye.